Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together right now over me.
All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right, it's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zacky, and we've got a great interview today for you with Bigtree. I love Bigtree. If you don't know who he is, you're going to get super enlightened with how amazing this man is, how brilliant he is, and how hardworking he is. But before we jump into all that, I want to give a big shout out, hello, welcome, and thank you to everybody out there on 93.7 KPGF as well as AM 1060. And, of course, to all the folks listening on Radio for America, the Answer Network, the Salem Network, the Kevin Jackson Network, and, of course, AUN Television. And a big thank you to everybody on all those networks that helps push this show and get that out there for all of you to listen to. Don't forget, you can always go to America Matters Media's Facebook or LinkedIn page. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow there. And also go to Zacky Radio on YouTube and Rumble. Like, subscribe, follow, and certainly share all that. But also follow us on X and on Instagram. And don't forget to do the same for me, at Leo S. Zacky. Love to have you follow us there. Get the little clips, the little bite-sized bits, easy to share. And it's got all the hot takes. So you'll like that too. But everybody knows the full episode's the best. This is where all the details are. So make sure you're always watching that as well. So, you ever get the feeling that something's not just broken in this country, but it's actually rigged? And I'm not just talking about politics. I'm talking about something way more personal. Something that hits you in the gut because it's about you, your body, your health. You have the right to say no. Because over the last few years, we've watched something that used to be unthinkable. The government telling us what to inject into our veins. Employers forcing it, schools demanding it, and half the country just nodding along and saying, well, it's for our safety. Well, let me say this as plainly as I can. That's not science. That's submission. So how did we go from the land of the free to show me your vax papers? Your papers! Where are your papers? Today's show is going to blow that story wide open. How did we get here? How did trust the science turn into do what you're told or else? So today's episode is going to answer that. And trust me, you're going to want to stay through to the very end because what we reveal in the final minutes of this show could change the way you look at the entire public health system. But first, let me tell you who we've got on the mic today. My guest is Bigtree. And if you've never heard that name before, buckle up, baby. Because he's been called a conspiracy theorist, a menace to Big Pharma, and a lightning rod for free speech. But if you ask the parents of vaccine-injured kids, he's a hero. Del is the CEO of Informed Consent Action Network, or ICANN, and he's the host of the HighWire platform, television show and platform that's been banned and censored and throttled and attacked at, every corrupt corner of media and, of course, government. He's been banned, he's been censored, he's been smeared by the media. But guess what? He just keeps going. Before all that, he was an Emmy Award-winning producer on The Doctors, a top-rated medical show on CBS. He was working inside the belly of the beast, and he started asking questions you're not allowed to ask. Questions about vaccine safety, about government cover-ups, about corporate collusion. And that's when everything changed. Del went from being Hollywood insider to freedom fighter. And today, he's going to break it all down for us. And he's going to share the story of the CDC whistleblower who admitted they deleted data showing vaccine autism correlation and how that's all linked together. And he's going to talk about California's SB 277 law, the one that forced kids to get vaccinated just to attend school, and how that all turned into him making himself a full-time activist. He's going to tell you about the motocross kid who's paralyzed by an HPV shot he didn't even need. I've seen the pictures. I've seen the video. And Dell saw the aftermath. And after hearing what this kid went through, I'll tell you right now, this show might not be easy to hear, but it needs to be heard. Because it's about freedom. It's not just about medicine, okay? And it's also about consent. It's about a government that has forgotten its limits and a global cartel that wants to erase yours. And today, we're going to talk about what they did to us during the scamdemic. But what we're also going to show is how this agenda has been building. And this didn't start in 2020. This goes back beyond that. It goes back decades. And how Dell has the documents, the names, and the facts to prove it. Now, I know the critics say,
oh, that's just conspiracy talk. Don't listen to him. He's dangerous.
well, you know what's dangerous? Blind obedience, okay? Censorship. And a public health system that acts like a cult and not science. And if you think I'm exaggerating, well then good, because by the end of this interview, you're going to see that every red flag you've ever ignored was real. And the people who tried to warn us, guess what? They're right all along. So stick with us. So coming up after the break, Dell Bigtree joins me here live at Freedom Fest. And we're going to talk about his journey from network TV to the front lines of medical freedom. And we'll expose all the lies, the lawsuits, and global treaties you haven't heard of yet. And we'll show you how to fight back. What's happening to your body, to your kids, to your country. It's not a mistake, it's a strategy. And today we pull back the curtain. This is Zacky Radio.
My name is Dell Bigtree. I am the CEO of the Informed Consent Action Network. I am the host of the internet talk show, the HighWire.com. I was just got finished being the Director of Communications for Robert Kennedy Jr. as he ran for President of the United States, and worked with him all the way until he put his hand in the Bible to become the new HHS Secretary of the United States of America. And so I think I consider myself a freedom fighter, and I think at the heart of freedom is the right to control what goes into your body. And if you can't do that, then I don't think you're free.
I have to agree with you on that, for sure.
Yeah.
This is Zacky Radio. We'll be right back after this break with the one and only Dell Bigtree. All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. We're here at Freedom Fest. I'm Leo Zacky, your host, and joining me is the incredible Del Bigtree. Del, thank you so much for sitting down and taking the time. You're a pillar of freedom, in my opinion. You fight for medical freedom, for health, for all Americans. You work tirelessly to do this. You've got organizations that you've started that help make people informed, and you fight for the people. You've worked with RFK Jr. You've got your own show, your own network. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do because you are so passionate, and you've produced films, and the stories that you show in these documentaries, they're eye-opening, they're heartbreaking, and they're inspiring, all in the same go.
Thank you.
You know, I got to see you at the Free Now Foundation event up in Stanford back in May, and I got to learn a lot about you from your speech. And I mean, it was great. I mean, I got to learn about your background, your childhood. I mean, and how that's inspired you to become the man you are. I mean, but you had a very unique upbringing. You know, your parents were not your run-of-the-mill parents.
No.
From the way you described them. I mean, could you talk a little bit more to how that was?
Well, because I think it's important. People ask me, like, how did you get into this? And I say, I guess I have to go back to how I was raised. My parents were freedom fighters themselves, but they were, in those days in the 60s, hippies. They marched in Chicago, the famous sort of, Chicago 7 and all of that. Mm-hmm. And so I was raised believing that you should stand up, be vocal about, your rights and your freedom. And of course, I grew up a progressive liberal back when liberal, I thought, contained the concept of liberty. We have since really gone astray, but, my parents were unique. For like 7 years, I was homeschooled. My sister was immediately pulled out of school. And my mom said, I am never going to raise kids that care what their friends think. You are not here. Nobody else's opinion matters in your life, only yours. And so that, I think, is a core principle of how I approach the things that I do. Mm-hmm. People, I get attacked for the work that I've done in the New York Times, Washington Post. I've read headlines that call me a baby killer. But I know that the work that I'm doing is saving children's lives, and I am dedicated to making sure that everyone knows the truth. So really, people are like, how do you handle it? How do you handle the attacks? It doesn't mean anything to me. Right. I was raised to never have it mean anything to me. All you can do is get the truth out there. That's what I do. It's in God's hands, what comes of it. I don't work for outcome. I'm driven by the idea that hopefully we can save lives and keep and make this vaccine issue something that I have a choice about. That's really all I care about. Right. If you want to inject your child with viruses and bacteria and aluminum and formaldehyde and mercury and polysorbate 80 and fatty lipids and hamster kidney cells and aborted fetal cell lines and monkey parts, it's a free country. Right. But you don't get to make me do that, and you don't get to make my children do that. Right. And so that's what we're really fighting for, is really freedom. No, and I agree. Medical freedom is so paramount. And, in places like California where they have this, like, you can't send your kid to school if they don't have their injections. And the thing is that there's all this money tied into these vaccines, I hate using the term vaccine nowadays because they've literally changed the language. No, by saying that right now, whatever this is going to air on, we might have just gotten you kicked off of YouTube. I'm not worried about YouTube. Yeah. The good news is I actually own a part of the radio station America Matters. All right, yeah, good. So, it's the way to do it. Same thing we did, right? We built our own website. We built our own player. We got rid of all of the third-party things that could be taken away from us and just said, hey, you want the truth, come to the HighWire.com. And so we own our own space. But yeah, California is where I think I ran into my destiny is what I would say. I was working on the CBS talk show, The Doctors, won an Emmy Award celebrating medicine and science, which was ironic because my mom would call me and say, what are you doing working on a medical talk show? You've never been to a doctor in your life. And I would say, God must have me here for a reason. I feel like I'm a bit of a Trojan horse because all the stories I'm doing are actually challenging the medical establishment. I'm doing a lot of stories on drug interactions and how it's killing people and recalls, or that a doctor is, using acupuncture instead of anesthesia. Just all of these things were outside of the mainstream, where Cleveland Clinic is bringing in chiropractors. So I was doing all those kinds of stories, and I ended up being the highest rated producer on the show, which made my life really easy. I could do, just things were really flowing.
What years
that
were you
was,
doing this?
I did that I was on the doctors for about 6 years. My last year was in 2015, so 2009, I was on the Dr. Phil show as a producer about 3 years before that. But I stumbled onto a whistleblower at the CDC named Dr. William Thompson. Someone tipped me off that there was a whistleblower saying that they were committing scientific fraud in the vaccine safety studies. And it was interesting because, as I said, I wasn't vaccinated as a kid, but it wasn't something, I didn't carry it like, and I, at that point, working the show, I'd had my first baby, my son ever, and I didn't vaccinate him because that was the way I lived, and it worked for me. Where I was healthy, my brother and sister are perfectly healthy. My parents still have never had any drugs or vaccines, and they're in their 80s, and my dad jogs every day, and so, it's it works, right? And, I'm not going to force it on you, but it was actually SB 277 when when Senator Richard Pan in California decided he was going to force every child to be vaccinated to be in the school system. That awoke a sleeping giant in me. And I didn't know that I had an agenda. I just know that I felt like suddenly I'm the last of the Mohicans. And by the way, he came on to the doctors to present this for the first time. We were the television show that had this great idea to force vaccinate every kid. And in that moment, I realized that I had an ethical issue now with the show and what we were promoting. And I would say that there should be a statue erected of Senator Richard Pan. He truly is, I would say, the godfather of the modern anti-vaccine movement or the medical freedom movement. Because without him, we were all just going to quietly live on our own, be this tiny little percentage of 2 or 3% of the people that had perfectly healthy kids, didn't have any illness or sickness, and living on organic food and drinking clean water and not vaccinating our kids. But when he came after our kids, well, especially with me, I used every power I had in media. I went out, we had rallies, and we went from 300 people to 500 people. You watched thousands of people started showing up. And if it weren't for Senator Richard Pan, Robert Kennedy Jr. would not be HHS Secretary right now, because it was that revolution that took place in health. And people like me and so many, the Maha moms, we call them now, we called them warrior moms up until then, that were storming capitals, changing laws, writing new legislation, talking to the politicians. And when I started, in 2016, when the documentary I made about the whistleblower Vaxxed, when that came out, you could not talk about vaccines in a single chat room. You'd get kicked out. People would just, oh my God, we're not going to talk about that. Well, look at the world we live in now. Everyone's talking about vaccines. It's the number one conversation, I think, around the world, especially when it comes to health. And everybody's accepting, you know what? The COVID vaccine didn't stop transmission.
No.
I know somebody that was killed by it.
I do too.
So this idea that was safe and effective and we should never question it, we have officially destroyed that narrative. And they destroyed it themselves. COVID, they got way out over the tips of their skis, but they ended up showing the world what I had been investigating, what I'd been fighting for since 2016 when the film came out. And now we live in a different world. The world now knows we never properly safety tested any of the childhood vaccines. Not one of them ever went through a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial like every drug we take. We don't do that for our own children. I mean, we make sure a product is safe for cancer patients. If you're, you could be dying of stage 4 cancer and you can't even try that trial drug because we got to make sure it's safe for you.
Yeah,
I'm dying
like,
here. What difference does it make? That has to go through a multi-year double-blind placebo trial to prove it's safe, a cancer drug. But your day 1 old baby is getting a hepatitis B vaccine, that's sexually transmitted disease that they're not even going to come in contact with till they're sharing heroin needles or sleeping with prostitutes. It's like the only way you get hepatitis B. That vaccine that you're going to inject in that day 1 old baby, this precious baby taking his first breaths of life, had a 4-day safety trial, 4 days, with no placebo group, nothing to compare it to. So even if the baby did die, they're like, oh, it was a weak baby, it was going to die anyway.
Well, they make it sound like these infants are born like original sin.
Yes. Born sick.
Yeah.
Born diseased. Must be injected by pharma. That's why I say that the pharmaceutical industry in modern medicine is really the greatest religion we have now in the world. And it is a religion. It is not science. That's what I think. If there's anything I've proven on the HighWire and the work that we've done is you are involved in a religion that is completely faith-based, has no actual science, has never proved that they're safe, hasn't proved it's effective, and the evidence of this COVID-19. Every single news anchor told you, you want to protect your neighbor, you have to take this vaccine, it'll stop transmission. Rachel Maddow, it stops with you. Joe Biden, if you don't take it, I'm taking away your job. You can't go to work. You've got to protect the workers around you. And we all find out, I knew it all along, I was saying it on the HighWire, the vaccine doesn't stop transmission. Could it stop transmission? As I just stated, all the science shows it actually makes you more likely to be infected. It has reverse transmission, and that is making you more vulnerable to being affected. So people seeing that now realize, oh my God, my government lies to me, the pharmaceutical industry lies to me, and that has been my mission all along, because it is the greatest travesty. Because we were told something was making us safe. We had to do it to go to school. We had to do it to go to work. And now we know we should never have done it because it was dangerous for our children. It was dangerous for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned when we were in Stanford how it's so backwards here that, well, if we're not sure it's bad for people, it's okay. But in Europe, if we're not sure it's good for people, we don't allow it.
Right.
It's that mentality.
Right.
But here, unfortunately, it's very profit driven, and it's all about the revenue that they can generate from it, because you have this revolving door with the FDA and the USDA of these people that go into the pharmaceutical industry, and then they come back out, and then they get a job in the government, and then they're in the government for a while, and they get a job high up, and it's just that revolving door, and that's how they keep this business going.
Yeah, it's the most powerful lobby in Washington. The pharmaceutical industry is outspending oil and gas 2-to-1. We fight wars in the Middle East all the time. We're always caught up in Israel or Iran or all of it, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, for oil and gas. So if pharma is spending twice as much money as they are to buy the government, what do you think they're buying? And I was saying this for years before COVID, but you saw what it was about. It's the World Health Organization.
Oh, yeah.
It's the World Economic Forum. What people have been asleep at the wheel was the sovereignty. The way to take away your sovereignty is not central reserve banking. That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's maybe facial recognition software, really scary. But how are they trying to take away your sovereignty? Through health, by saying if we control the narrative of health, we, the WHO, and by the way, almost every nation in the world just signed the WHO treaty, which basically says that if we determine that there is a disease that is of epidemic proportions, which means it just crossed a border, one is all that's necessary, and we determine that, we now take charge of your sovereignty of your nation, and we determine whether you can walk down the street, whether you have to wear a mask, whether you have to lock down in your house, whether you cannot go to school, whether you cannot go to work. That is a destruction of every sovereign nation there is, and we saw how close it almost happened here.
And look how willing people were to just accept that. And it's a control through fear mechanism.
Fear is it.
And they're like, well, us government, we can protect you. We'll give you that false idea of safety, but you just got to give up some of your rights and liberties. We'll be right back after this short break with a word from our sponsors. Stay tuned to hear part 2 of my fascinating interview with Del Bigtree after these messages. Bigtree here on Zacky Radio. And we saw this in 2001, shortly after 9/11, with the Patriot Act.
Yes.
You know, where now you're a domestic terrorist. You know, so a U.S. citizen can now be detained indefinitely without trial. You know,
Right.
totally violation of our rights and things that are founded on. It's amazing to see that. You know, and then I'm glad you brought up the things like the World Economic Forum, that there are these large global entities that are multinational. This is beyond any one government.
This is the worst thing happening in the world right now as we speak, and it is a looming tidal wave that is going to slam in the United States of America. It almost did. If you know, I say, you know, and I don't care what anyone thinks of Donald Trump, but when that bullet, you know, just grazed his ear, but essentially missed Donald Trump, I say we all dodged a bullet that day.
Oh, for sure.
Because Joe Biden and then ultimately Kamala Harris were running on the fact that we are going to end misinformation, meaning censorship is going to be a full-on requirement of the government of the United States, which means we're about to lose our First Amendment rights in the United States of America. And that means that you can no longer say anything that the government doesn't agree with. So every other right that you have, how can you defend it if you can't talk about it?
Right.
So that was it. The end of the Constitution of the United States of America was hanging in a balance on this election. But what I'm saying to people, do not go to sleep. Don't go to sleep just because Donald Trump's in there fighting for it,
Exactly.
or Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to change the.
It's not time to rest on our laurels.
Because there's going to be reaction to this moment,
Of course.
and what comes after them. Because as I just said, the entire world has fallen. In England, you can be arrested now for tweeting about a march outside your window, or
you post on Facebook.
That's it.
And they
Facebook.
literally will send the police to your house, and they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
you're basically upsetting somebody."
Or you're speaking out, you're saying bad things about the government.
Yeah.
You know, so you can go to jail now. I mean, that is just so terrifying. But, you know, this globalist thinking, and, you know, it's being at a libertarian conference like we're at right now, it's not something like I said, I grew up a liberal, but more and more I'm moving to this idea that you want government as close to you as you can get it. You want smaller government. You want your state to be more powerful than your federal government, because it's a lot easier to remove a governor than it is to remove the president.
Right.
You know, but now imagine with what the European Union, you talk to like these European Union countries, they have no singular power anymore.
And
it doesn't matter what they vote for their own people. The union is, and how do you stop the union? Who's the head of the union?
Right, exactly.
You know?
It's an unelected board of people.
It's
right.
big.
So it's like,
Right.
are you really? Is this really democratic, so to speak? It's, and, you know,
Right.
I don't, because I hate when people apply the term democracy to the United States, because we're a constitutional republic.
I think that's an important distinction,
You know?
but even so, you know, at least give me a democracy, because you know, but you know, now it's not just the president. Now, what if you have a global leader? Because essentially, it's what the WHO is.
Right.
Did you vote for Tedros
No.
to run the WHO? Because he's allowed to run your country. He just did it during COVID. And we have to say never again.
Yeah.
Never again are we going to
Unelected
make
officials, multinational, dictating to the people of the world,
Yeah.
this is what you must do. Well, why? Well, look at my title. It's got world in it.
Yeah.
Health.
Yeah.
We're a
Yeah.
big thing. You got to trust what we do. We got to trust what we say. And it's people that are just so willing, this cognitive dissonance, to just fall in line and not ask the questions. I mean, how do we escape this mass formation psychosis? I mean, the information that you're bringing forward, things you're doing with ICANN.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how do you wake up the average NPC normie?
Well, I mean, look.
Can you?
I think if there, I would say this at this point. If at this point the person that you love or you want to like talk to is going in for their 10th booster shot with COVID and they have not gotten the message, then I think you have to love them and let them go.
You can't save everybody.
You know what I mean? You can't save everybody. What we have got to do right now, and I really think, I've been thinking a lot about, you got to see the world now, or see our job as building an ark. We have got to get all those people that do have like-minded, are already there, and then all of these new people that are finally asking the question. They're like, wait a minute, I'm not taking another booster shot. I'm not sure I trust my doctor anymore. I don't know what's going on. That's who we have to talk to. And we got to go and just be open to them. What do you want to know? Like, let's discuss this. Because if we can enroll all of those people, I believe we have taken, On the vaccine issue, we've gone from 3% vaccine hesitancy to well over 30 or 40%. And if you look at it, 80% of the people that are now, up for the COVID booster aren't taking it. Even the health department is not taking COVID vaccines. 75% of people in healthcare. So we're in a transition moment. We've got to capitalize on it. Don't worry about the people that are just never going to get it, that are pouring the cement around their feet and jumping over the side of the boat.
Right.
Might be a loved one, might be your mom, might be your dad. Love them because they're playing an important role in this play of life, right? We have to recognize the amount of damage that was done. Those numbers, these skyrocketing numbers that are still there, the turbo cancers that are happening, the children dying of heart attacks because their heart is swollen from this vaccine. It is so tragic, but it's also a part of just this greater body. We're all just like a body. We're all just cells making up this body. Some cells are going to die, but hopefully we clear those cells out and we learn and we get healthier. We develop an immunity to bad decision making.
I know what you mean. I kind of like reference back to the Old Testament when God had Moses wandering through the desert for 40 years, so those who knew slavery would die off before they entered the Promised Land, so that mentality and that horror wouldn't be something that could be remembered and brought upon. So that's kind of what I correlate that kind of thought process.
I agree. I think you look at the creation story, you look at the fights for freedom that were discussed in the Bible, look at the fights for civil rights, and what I want people to recognize is that you are so incredibly powerful. You are created in the image and likeness of God. This is what I was taught. Doesn't mean that you are God. And in fact, that's the problem, is these doctors and scientists that are playing God, that are injecting a virus into my body or some pseudo virus like they did with COVID, this spike protein, and turning my body into a disease manufacturing plant. And it isn't creating the immunity they want. They're finding people 700 days later in the most recent Yale study are still producing spike protein in their bodies, means this toxin that their bodies are creating isn't stopping, which has a lot of scientists believing it may, this mRNA that was a brand new technology. The biggest fear is, what if it inserts itself into your chromosomes? What if it becomes a part of your species and mutates you permanently forever? That is a question that we have to look at. With 700 days later, people still having spike protein. Are you a mutant now? Are you a virus manufacturing plant?
2.0? Are you eligible to the same protections against slavery as human 2.0?
Right, are you patentable now? Because now what's pumping through your blood is owned by the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, these are not, I know people think, oh, conspiracy. It's not.
Right.
These are things, and I'm not saying it is. What I'm saying as a journalist, I am asking that question. I am investigating that. I am really curious what we have just done to our species, and most specifically,
because no other animal does this.
No, and we are the only mammal right now on the planet that is devolving. We are losing our ability to walk this earth with health. We are the only animals whose immune systems now are attacking the cells of our own body. Not just a small percentage. It used to be like 12% chronic illness in the 1980s. We are well past 50. Some people say 60% chronic illness, mostly autoimmune disease and neurological disorders, which neurological disorders are brain swelling, which is coming from an autoimmune disease. So autoimmune meaning your immune system has gotten confused. It's attacking your own body, not protecting your body.
But that's what things like plaque psoriasis is. That's an autoimmune disorder.
Look at all these drugs. They're all autoimmune drugs by the same company that did what? And people say, well, how do you know it's the vaccines? I was like,
what's the common denominator here?
How do you know it's not the water? I'll say, how do you know it's not the water, the fluoride in our water? How do you know, Del, that it's not the pesticides and herbicides that sprayed over all of our crops like Monsanto's glyphosate? How do you know it's not the antibiotics and the hormones that we're injecting into our beef? How do you know it's not the PFAS chemicals that were in the nonstick pan that we all ate with?
But none of this stuff sounds good. How can it not be any of these things? They're a combination.
Or a combination. And what I say is, look, Robert Kennedy Jr. is about to investigate every single one of those things. None of it's going to be left off the table. Nobody gets a free ride now. It doesn't matter that you're in the pharmaceutical industry. We don't care. It doesn't matter that you think the God of health is a vaccine program. It's all going to be on the table, and we're going to look at it. But let's be clear. We are going to find out what is causing this autoimmune disease crisis, this epidemic that has gone from 12% to 60% chronic illness, which is the greatest decline in human health we have ever seen or ever recorded. When we find it out, though, at the center of it will be Health and Human Services, FDA, CDC, and NIH. Why? Because every single one of those toxic products was said to be safe by the government in the United States, and more specifically, our health agencies. So our illness lays at the feet of all of medicine right now, especially the regulatory agencies of the United States of America, and they will be held accountable. But lastly, of all the water and the food and everything I just said, we talk about autoimmune disease. Okay, sure, those things may all be contributing, but you know why I'm most specifically looking at vaccines? Because what does a vaccine do? A vaccine is designed to alter your immune system for life, to give you a disease, make you think you had it, and trick your immune system into thinking it needs to create immunity.
Yeah.
And we don't just trick your immune system 1 time, or 10 times, or 20 times, or 40 times, or 50 times, or 60 times, 72 times. And now it looks like it may be as many as 90 times we're tricking the immune system through vaccinations. 90 vaccinations by the time you're 18. And lo and behold, we're shocked that your immune system is tripped up, is now confused, is attacking the cells of your own body. It seems blatantly obvious to me, and I will tell you, I've seen tons of science that many people haven't seen. Vaccines are at the center of this autoimmune disease crisis, and the whole world is about to discover that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Del, you mentioned about, that this is all being allowed from federal regulatory bodies, and you are a big proponent of states' rights.
Yes.
What can a state do? What can a governor of a state do to help protect the people and stop this poisoning?
We'd like to see states starting to opt out of the vaccine protections, through the 1986 Act. I don't know if it's possible, but start demanding that we need to be able to sue the manufacturer for products that injure us. This is the only product right now in America that the manufacturers get away with killing you, injuring you, and you cannot sue them. So that's a big one. But there's lots of legislation right now that we're doing through Informed Consent Action Network, our C4. There's lots of other great, grassroots groups that are bringing legislation. One of the things that we're trying to do for the next legislative season is essentially create a bill. You could just create a bill to say, if an infectious agent ever infects someone without their knowledge or without their signing off, giving informed consent, then whoever created that infectious agent has to pay a $2,000 fine. Think about this. The COVID vaccine, if it ends up shedding, or if you were in a laboratory making a gain of function like China, and that infection that you never signed up for but came from a laboratory, do you realize billions and trillions of dollars will be the cost of having done that? We believe that that would be a way to shut down gain of function, because no one's going to want to take the risk of that leap, coming out of their lab. If they have to pay every citizen $2,000 to 340 million Americans. It's things like that. It's ingenuity like that. We're looking at legislation. Who would disagree with that?
Right.
Who would disagree with you should be fined if you infect me with something that you created?
We'll be right back after this short break with a word from our sponsors. Stay tuned to hear the end of this incredible interview with Del Bigtree here on Zacky. And we're back to hear the final part of my conversation with the one and only Del Bigtree here on Zacky Radio.
So it's things like that, or getting rid of, saying that you cannot inject me with any product that has the ability to mutate my DNA in any way or my genetics. I think that would shut down mRNA technologies immediately. It is clear that we have a problem here. And think about it, whether or not you believe the COVID vaccine was dangerous, you really should be doing some reading if it's lost on you that we're having children having heart attacks for the first time, cerebral cancers are going on.
Athletes dropping dead on the field.
Well, let's just be clear. Let's say it was perfectly safe. If we keep allowing the pharmaceutical industry to make a product that is injected into, and everyone has to take it, all 7 billion people like we saw with this COVID vaccine, except those of us that resisted. But if you have to all take this product, what if that product has a malfunction? Right. What if there's something they miss? What if it causes infertility for every woman that gets it? What if it causes cancer for everyone? I assure you, if we keep allowing the pharmaceutical industry to make a product, it is species ending that never gets tested for safety, which is exactly what happened in COVID. You rush it through emergency use authorization for your crony contact with the President of the United States, say, no, just let us get out of safety trials and then force everybody to take it. If we keep doing that, this species is not long for this earth. Because let's be clear, in nature, no virus and no bacteria has ever swept the world since the dawn of man and wiped out our species. But in our arrogance right now, if we allow doctors to keep making man-made products that enter our DNA, that can swell our hearts, that can, and cause infertility and so many other things we probably can't even imagine, and we let them force everyone on this planet to take that, then one error, and this is all over. This is the scariest thing in the world right now. And they're developing self-spreading vaccines so that guys like you and I, they're like, I'm not taking it.
Well, too bad, sucker.
Too bad, because your neighbor got it, and now they're shedding it on you, and now you're going to get it whether you like it or not. Man-made spreading viruses is what they're working on. We have lost our minds. I just did a talk about this. This is the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. This is what God said to us. Do not ever become so arrogant that you start making your own viruses to compete with nature, lest you shall surely die.
And you have these supervillains out there like Bill Gates who want to keep pushing this kind of stuff. He's crossbreeding and making these genetically modified mosquitoes that he's already releasing into the wild.
I didn't get to vote for that.
Right. But he's doing it in Colombia. He's doing it in Colombia, so that's okay. But apparently those mosquitoes have now made their way into the United States.
Of course.
Right.
They have wings.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought? Oh my God, I didn't expect them to come across the border.
I mean, we have these super villains, essentially, that these
I like to refer them as super morons.
Okay.
Because I think super villain, it cartoons, and I mean, I'm not putting it down, but I just think, if you want to win, which is what I'm really caught up in, if you want to win a battle, the art of war says you have to know your enemy. And when you call someone a supervillain, you're giving this cartoon thing as though they're out there trying to, destroy the world. He's not. He's actually trying to save the world. I really believe this. He actually thinks that if we don't follow his way, there'll be too many people on the earth, that pestilence will take over, that the disease is going to wipe us out, that the sun is going to burn us, so we have to he's trying to block the sun right now to protect us. He's trying to protect us. He needs mosquitoes to protect us, and so it's that level. And so I would say this is just a guy trying to do the right thing, and instead he is effing up in the most major way. He is putting us in so much danger. So he's not evil. If he was evil and you just say he's evil, I can't relate to him because I'm not evil. I don't understand what it means to try to kill people. I don't think he is. He's trying to save people, and he's destroying the earth, and he's destroying our environment, and he's destroying our bodies. I say that because it's far easier to beat a talentless moron who has a lot of power than an evil entity that I don't understand how they think.
Okay. That's an interesting perspective on that. No,
he's talentless, and that makes him dangerous, and he thinks he's God. He's lost, and so that's the evil. The evil is not, I'm trying to kill people. The evil is forgetting that there is something much bigger than you that holds us all together, that is creating this beautiful dance of bacteria. Millions of bacteria and viruses are on my hands right now. They are populating my stomach. They're why I digest food. There's viruses and bacteria that are taking the nutrients and moving it throughout my body into my brain. And idiots like Bill Gates is saying, well, I'm going to kill one of those viruses. I'm going to get that bacteria, as though they understand that, the entire delicate balance that they're throwing out of whack. Autism is 1 in 12.5 boys in California. I am telling you, vaccines is playing a huge part of it, because these idiots do not know what they're doing when they're playing God.
That's the problem, is this whole God complex that these, super entity folks, Klaus Schwab's, Noah Yuval Harari's, Bill Gates's, and they subscribe to that Georgia Guidestones saying we have to bring the population down to under 500 million to preserve nature, because we're the scourge of the planet. We're killing the planet. We're the virus on the living thing that is Mother Earth.
Yes, that is the one principle, I think. When I even rode with Bobby as we started him as a Democrat. We left the Democrats because they were too corrupt and wouldn't give him a fair shot, and became independents, and then ultimately joined President Trump. And Bobby and a lot of people that go through that transition say, the Democratic Party left me. It changed.
Yeah.
That's what I said at first. But as I look back now, I don't think I was paying attention, because at the heart of the democratic principle and the value system is exactly what you just said. That human beings are a disease on this planet, that we are bad for this planet, that our population and our giving birth is a bad thing, which is why you have, abortion needs to be available, because better to just kill babies than to have too many of them on the earth. And then ultimately, when you believe that all human beings are as a disease, of course you have to govern them. A disease is too stupid to know how to vote. It's too stupid to know how to run a country. It's too stupid to think for itself. And that's how Democrats think. You are a disease, you're stupid, you're incapable, and we need a nanny state. We need a government. We need the elite, God, self-proclaimed gods to make our decisions for us. And that has always been there. It always will be. I'm not saying Republicans are perfect and they have their own versions of this.
There's all sorts of issues.
But at the heart of it is exactly what you said. I no longer see us as a disease. I see us as created in the image and likeness of God. And we are spectacular, we are powerful, and our bodies are so brilliant, we're going to overcome the mistakes we've made with this COVID vaccine. But we've got to stop doing this.
Yeah, we can't keep playing.
We can't keep playing like this.
Yeah, playing God, screwing with Mother Nature. I mean, you just can't keep doing that. It's totally unsustainable. And like you said before, like it's got to be how like Oppenheimer felt when he like helped make the nuclear bomb. Like what have I done? Yeah. But this is far more dangerous and destructive, because you actually have to build the bomb. This, all you have to do is release one cell, and that's it. Exactly. I am fighting so hard to help, and just like you, we have so much. We're all moving in our own lanes, trying to help save this country, save this planet, save humanity as a whole. Yeah. And you mentioned legislature, finding these people. That's definitely something what we got to do. Is there anything, direct action as an elected governor? What can I do more?
Yeah, I mean, look,
directly.
Look at what the governor of West Virginia just did. Before Robert Kennedy Jr. really even could get to work, he's still trying to be confirmed. The governor of West Virginia said no more petroleum-based chemical dyes allowed in food products in my state.
That's why I supported him.
Said, yep, and then he said, and by the way, the SNAP program, if we're paying for to feed you and help you buy food,
better be healthy.
You're not gonna get to buy sugary and colored foods, and you can't buy crap. I need you to be healthy so that you can get into the job market, that your kids can thrive, and that you can be healthy, and that you have a chance to the American dream here. In Utah, same thing, took fluoride out of water, the governor there. And that is, and as Robert Kennedy Jr. said to me, Del, get out and get the states to move like this. If they can pass legislation, if the governors can make a difference, what's happening is then the food industry, whether it's Nabisco or Kellogg, go rushing into the office in Washington, D.C., and Robert Kennedy Jr., they're like, mercy, please, we can't have we got 4 different states now that won't accept some of our products, so that ends our ability to have a national commercial. We can't run our Fruit Loops on every, television channel, and that messes up our whole ad, revenue and how we do it. So, Bobby, what do we do? He's like, you're going to take that stuff out of all of your products. It's that simple. And so you want to know what the state does? The state has the power. It led. And it's why Robert Kennedy Jr. is able to move as quickly as he has on these issues, because the governors are making a difference on this. And I hope frankly, in the states, as a governor, you also pick that attorney general. I think there's almost 20 attorney generals that are looking at going after Fauci, of really doing an investigation on Fauci. He may have been pardoned by, President Biden, which is a federal pardon, but guess what? It doesn't affect the states. If the states believe that what Fauci did killed American citizens or the citizens in the states of Texas, then they have a case. So those are the things that's where states' rights is so important. And you're going to see us in this movement using the power of the state right now in ways you've never seen it before.
I'm looking forward.
And I want to, and we get a guy like you into office, then, the sky is the limit, right? We need people that believe in the power of the people, that believe in us, that actually want our voices to be heard. It's of, for, and by the people, and we have lost our way. There's no one smart enough, not someone that should be making our decisions for us. What we want is leaders that say, talk to me, come into my office. Let me see the science. Let's have a debate. Let's put it out in front of the television. Why is no one ever taking the doctors that say that vaccines are safe and effective and say, here's Robert Kennedy Jr., a bunch of doctors that he said they're saying they look like they're dangerous, and have a debate in front of the public? Why is this all happening behind closed doors? Transparency is everything.
Yes.
And governance should be transparent.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And I think so many people realize that they're just afraid, and they've surrendered their power for so long. They've been indoctrinated for so long. But then you have the independent thought minds like yourself who get up there and you give people that hope. Yeah. I can't thank you enough for all the work that you do and how much you sacrifice to help humanity. And you do this from a very selfless position. And I recognize that. I think everybody here at this conference recognizes that, and all of your fans do too. So I'm just privileged to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you and share this information. You're the man. What can I say?
You're the man. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you,
Thank you for committing your life to making a difference in the world. And none of us has control over how this all ends, but we're getting up passionately in the morning. It's all I say. I just want my kids to watch. Dad got up and he did what he believed in. Whether he won or lost, every day that I go to bed, I can die today and say I did everything I could. I was alive on this earth. And we just want everyone else to start really thinking, am I living the life that I dreamt of? And if not, act accordingly and change it.
Yeah, and that's it. Purpose. You've got it. You want to instill that in others.
Yep.
Del Bigtree, thank you so much for joining me here on American Matters. Folks, I'm Leo Zacky. We're here at Freedom Fest. I'm here with Del Bigtree. We'll be right back.